Welcome to the Germinate podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. All right, folks, welcome back to the Germinate podcast. I've got a longtime friend with me on here, Alex Mussa with SNA Manufacturing. Alex, how are you, my friend?
Doing wonderful. How about you, Joe?
I'm doing good. I can't thank you enough for joining me on this. So thank you very much. And I'm excited to dig into today's kind of the Italian episode. All right, so let's get into your background. Tell me a little bit about yourself and SNA Manufacturing and everything that's going on with that.
Well, I came over to SNA Manufacturing in 2016 after a 29-year career with the Italian Trade Commission here in the Atlanta area. During those 29 years, I covered several positions. One of the last positions was Director of Capital Promotions of Capital Goods Machinery. I also work quite extensively with ag equipment or farm equipment and construction equipment. And I enjoyed working in all these industries very much, to be honest with you. The type of promotions that I did were throughout North America. I took delegations of both journalists and businessmen to Italy to either visit with Italian companies or to Italian trade shows. So it was a very enjoyable position that I had for 29 years. I was able to get some industry recognition for my work. I served on the board of EMDA, the Equipment Distributors and Marketers Association. And I'm currently serving on FEMA's Board of Governors for the supplier section.
Yeah, nice. I know I'm all about FEMA and all about EMDA for sure. 29 years at the Italian Trade Commission. So obviously you were born in Italy. At what point in time did you?
No, you were born in the United States.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was born in Florida, Tallahassee, Florida. But I was raised for the most part in Italy. We moved back to Italy at a young age and didn't move back to the States until I was 13 years old, so 7th grade. Only 8th grade here in the United States, and then high school and college and so on.
You did high school and college in the United States?
Yes, I did.
You did? Okay. So you really haven't you've lived in Italy, you lived in Italy for what, 13 years? And not really out
years, maybe less, maybe 12 years, 12, 13 years. So really the bulk of my life has really been in the United States. Although the first, 12 years, 13 years are very formative in not only in your culture, but in perhaps your way of thinking. So I think it was a wonderful opportunity, to be honest with you, to be able to be raised in 2 different cultures.
Well, yeah, especially Italy, because what a lot of people don't know in the agricultural industry is there's a lot of cross between Italy and the U.S. With some of the Italian, for instance, gearboxes, drive shafts, that sort of thing. There's a lot of Italian business that kind of partners with U.S. companies. And obviously, that was a huge part of your role at the Trade Commission.
Absolutely. And we'll maybe touch base about it a little bit later on when we dig into international business. But just to give you an idea, Italy is among the top 3 producers of farm equipment in the world. So between the United States, Germany, and Italy, they usually always jockey for the leadership in the top position in production of farm machinery.
What are the top 3 brands? I'm going to guess. Okay, I'm going to guess for it. I got to believe one of them's Lamborghini, right?
Well, actually, New Holland is one of the top Italian brands, which now is merged with Case. So CNH. CNH is an Italian brand, and it was owned by the Fiat, by the family, their own Fiat, the Agnelli family. So that was obviously a huge company that also encompassed construction equipment, for example. But you had many other companies that sold equipment in the United States for quite a few years. They still are present with their own name and through names of partners that they have. For example, Simi Tractors. They've been doing business in the United States for many years. The Landini Group has been doing business for many years. Both of these groups have done quite a bit of business with AGCO, for example. They made a lot of tractors for AGCO under the AGCO name right. But there were companies that sold on a worldwide basis their equipment.
So what kind of things in your 29-year career at the Italian Trade Commission? I mean, what was the main responsibilities that you had there? Was it to partner U.S. businesses with Italian businesses?
Yeah, the focal point of my job was really to find distribution for Italian companies in the United States primarily, but I also helped quite a bit with Canada and Mexico, even though those were not my primary markets. I did trade promotion events in both Canada and Mexico, as well as the islands as well, the Caribbean islands. So we did quite a few activities, and yeah, the focal point was to find opportunities for Italian manufacturers.
Sure. I got you. As far as the Italian manufacturers and the Italian industry, what kind of challenges and more like opportunities would Italian manufacturers have here in the United States, maybe back then, and what do they exist today to your knowledge?
Well, some of the names that existed then and it still exists now, you also kind of mentioned companies that produce gearboxes and drive lines like Comer, Bondioli, Pavesi. They certainly have a very strong position in North America with their products. Case New Holland has got a strong position, and they have invested in different companies. Some they've had to sell off because of competitive, how would you say, because of competitiveness, they couldn't have too much of a certain part of a market, so that they could not monopolize it. I'm thinking, for example, of Bueller. Bueller had to buy some of the equipment that the CNH inherited through some of the acquisitions the CNH has made. So the Landini family, for example, the same situation. They're married, or they were affiliated through marriage with the Agnelli family, which own Fiat. So they have also they are competitors in some sense. They're also beneficiaries in some other sense, because some of the acquisitions that were made by CNH, they had to divest, and then they purchased some of those assets that had to be divested. So it's kind of interesting how you see some of these companies, especially large multinationals, when they make moves, a lot of times they have to sell a chunk of the business they take on because they have too strong of a position in the market, for example.
I gotcha.
So you'll see some of that. But those names are still going very strong, not just in the United States, but worldwide, to be honest with you. Most of these companies are family-owned companies. So what you might see over time is that family-owned companies, when it comes to have a generational change, they might decide that the second or the third generation no longer wants to be involved with directing the company or managing the companies. So they may sell off the company in part or in total. So that's one of and you see that a lot also with FEMA members, I'm sure, where there is a generational change. Is what to do? Is it for the new generation to take over, or is it to perhaps find someone that wants to take over the company, and there are other interests from the offsprings of the original owner or the first generation owner? So that's always a challenging time for family-owned companies. It is in Italy as it is here. Most Italian companies are small family-owned, with exception of like Fiat or CNH. So the generational change can create a lot of opportunities and also perhaps difficulties within the family. actually, and how do you want to move forward in the future? But I think you see that in other countries as well when you do have a generational change.
As far as the cultural differences between Italy and the US, do you think that plays a role as far as how, how businesses interact? And I think we have similar cultures, but obviously there's some definite differences there as well. What's your experience with the cultural differences?
Well, yeah, there are definitely some cultural differences, and some of the big differences that I have noticed, for example, is that a lot of these small companies may be players in Italy and have fierce competition within the Italian market, but also they export the majority of their production, which means that you'll have companies that the Italian market is only 20% of their sales, only for sales, exports to various countries. When that happens, a lot of times they feel that the degree of acceptance of their product worldwide is so great, then that coming to the United States is no different. And that's not the case. The United States is a market that is very difficult. It can be very rewarding, but it's very difficult. It's got its nuances, sure, and you better pay attention to those nuances because otherwise it can certainly create a situation where you might be forced into a quick exit, wasted capital because you did not approach it correctly, and even damage the name brand of your product because of having not addressed or taken on the market in the way that you probably should have, considered approaching it and having a strategy to penetrate that market. So that is a very delicate aspect that not every company is successful at it. And sometimes, there's a little bit of hubris in being able to sell in a lot of markets and thinking that, well, if I sell everywhere else, why can't I sell in the United States?
Right.
One example is, for example, in the tractor market. Some people might think, oh, well, the market is, there's 100,000 new units sold every year. My product is well accepted all over the world. I can certainly create a niche for my product in that market. Well, there are some very big players, very strong players, and even a small niche might not be such an easy thing to achieve when you come to the United States, when you have to measure up, to a John Deere or to a Case or a New Holland tractor that has been here for in some cases a century, in some cases maybe many decades.
Yeah. Well, and agriculture in the States is just different. It's more robust. It's faster. I mean, it's some of the most advanced technology in the world is going on right here in America. And so sometimes when that international equipment comes over to this area, there's nuances and changes in development that need to be done to be able to make it withstand the rigors of our market here.
Sure. Well, that's a very good point that you made, Joe. And as you know, the size of farms in Italy, in Europe, in other places of the world are not the same sizes as in the United States.
No.
So the equipment is not a lot of times designed to be run for 12 hours, 18 hours consecutively. It's designed, for doing a 5-acre plot, let's say, or a 10-acre plot.
Yep.
And therefore, yes, sometimes the equipment has to be modified to meet the rigorous or the requirements of the market. Soil types, some soils are easier to work with than others. So there's a lot of absolutely there's a lot of differences that cannot be be underestimated when looking to enter a new market.
Oh yeah, and same goes with when the U.S. tries to enter into the Italian market. I mean, we have to adapt to those changes and nuances over there to ensure that the equipment we make or the parts that we make are up to the rigors and withstand that market, which is totally different. And until you've been there, you might not really understand that. But I always look at Italy, and maybe it's probably it may be a stereotype, but maybe not. But super high quality stuff. Obviously, pay attention to the details as far as a trading partner. Very high quality. Pay attention to the details. Very relationship driven. Am I spot on here, or do you think?
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What do you think attributes to that? I mean, I think of Italy. I think of high quality.
Well, what happens is, for particularly to the Italian market, is that because of the variety and the number of microclimates that we have in Italy, you have a lot of different crops that are grown in Italy under different conditions, varying types of landscapes. So you have a lot of manufacturers that really cater to certain parts of Italy and the needs of those growers. I was amazed that one of the first times I went to the EMA show in Bologna, that's the International Farm Equipment Exposition show, and there were at least 30 manufacturers of tillers. And that's because, so many companies, worked in their area, in their region, and they were very strong in that region, but really had no reason to sell in another region where conditions and crops may have been different. Sure. So that created a lot of specialization, a lot of, as you said, attention to the detail, because you're really working with a very specific type of grower in a very specific type of soil, a condition, and that particular product may be great in that area, may not be as great in another area, and differences in soil and landscape between the northern part, the southern part of Italy can be great.
Give us a bit of a landscape lesson of Italy. So what are the major, I mean, obviously weather changes is one, but soil types, different crops. So the north, the south, the middle, give us kind of a history lesson.
First of all, it's very mountainous, Italy. A lot of mountains, and therefore very little, very small type of plains or areas that are conducive to large-scale type of agriculture. For example, the Po Valley, it's the largest valley in Italy, and that stretches from the region of Piedmont, where I'm from, which borders France, all the way to Venice, which is on the opposite side. That would be bordering with Austria and Slovenia and so forth. So that's the biggest valley that we have in Italy, and the soil type there is excellent. It's soft. It's alluvial. So it is. The climate is great. So that's very good part of that's probably the best and the easiest soil for agriculture that we have in Italy. But then you have a lot of smaller valleys where the soil may be more clayish, for example, or more hard pan, or the agriculture may be more on a hilly type of ground where perhaps you have to clear a lot of rocks before you get to the soil. So it might lend itself more to orchard as opposed to row crops type of thing. Definitely the further south you go, the hotter the climate that you have. The hotter the climate, of course, the different type of soil. Also, there's a lot of volcanoes in southern Italy. You have 4 volcanoes in southern Italy. So you have a lot of soil that comes from volcanic rock, which has had to be broken down. And it's very fertile, but it's obviously much harder soil to start to work with than perhaps the alluvial soil that you would find in the Po Valley, that is more like you would find in any type of situation close to a large river. Think of perhaps the Mississippi Valley. I mean, this is areas where, rivers for centuries have overflowed, deposited silt. So it's very rich land, very type of soft land to farm, as opposed to perhaps land that you are actually having to reclaim from volcanic rock or from very hard clays and so on. The climate also, the further north you go, the cooler the type of weather, and therefore you have more moisture in the ground. The further south, the less moisture you have on the ground, also because of the climate difference. So it's like I said, Italy has got probably more microclimates than any other country in the world.
Wow.
And that gives Italy the opportunity to grow many different types of crops, but also you need a large variety of equipment to work that land. And as you know, in Europe, the cost of labor is very high. So you really have to be highly mechanized because you cannot afford to do it by hand. A lot of the work, like it was perhaps done, in the 1800s or at the very, early 1900s at the turn of the century. So you will see an incredible amount of mechanization in Italy, much more that you find in the United States or in other parts of the world.
Where's all the wine grown? Is it down south?
Well, there is wine grown throughout Italy. The region that I'm from, Piedmont, is particularly known for wine.
Okay.
And the wine or grapes say to be grown also on very hilly parts of Italy. They really save the valleys for row crops. So you don't really find a lot of grapes in flat areas. You really find them more in hilly type of ground. And Piedmont, basically in Italian or in Latin, stands for at the foot of the mountain. So the name itself tells you that there are a lot of hills in that area, and grapes, as well as some of the orchards that are really found. Olive that is really doesn't need fertile land. The olive trees can be grown in very poor land. So you will find that in hilly terrain. A lot of times you will find it in rockier type of terrain in central and south of Italy for the most part. There are no olive trees, for example, in Piedmont. The closest you might have is on the coast where Genova is. And the type of olive that you have there makes an olive oil that is very different than the type of olive oil that you would find in central Italy or in southern Italy. It tends to be a lot spicier, the one that you will find in central Italy and southern Italy. And that's all because of the soil type. The soil has an incredible effect on the taste of the product, on the size, the quality of the product. It's really amazing the differences that you will have in taste of different crops depending where they're grown.
So is there an olive tour that you could take, kind of like what they do with wine tours in Sonoma and all that?
Because that would be awesome. Actually, I have heard, I've never done it myself, but I have heard that there are actually now tourists that will go to Italy, and part of their vacation is to work and pick olives for a grower in a certain part of Italy. They might only do it for 3-4 days at the most, or a couple of days. But now you have these tours where people will live out in the country and enjoy the countryside, do a little bit of the picking themselves just to kind of experience what it's like.
I bet.
And it's very beautiful, the landscape. So it's very enjoyable.
I've been to Italy many times, but always to Bologna, to the EMA show as well. And I find that show fascinating because of the relationships that the Italian companies have with one another, the country pride that everybody has too. They like to take care of each other's businesses. And, if there's a supplier in Italy for a manufacturer, they're going to go to them first. And I find that fascinating. I wish the U.S. was more like that. I think we're trying to get there. We're not there yet, but I always find that fascinating when I go to Bologna and to that show.
Well, and the interaction between the grower and the manufacturers is incredible, right? I mean, it's not unlike for you to go to the show and find a farmer that is arguing with the engineer that the machine should be done this way and not halfway because it would be more suitable for his needs. Well, I suppose you will find that in the United States too, that you'll have people that will go to a manufacturer and says, well, I want my machine to be this, and that, as opposed to, well, is that what happens?
Yeah, that happens. But a lot of times in the U.S. shows, a full engineering staff's not going to go to the show. Whereas at the EMA show, they're going to unload everybody. They're going to bring their engineers, the CEOs, the sales guys, the production guys. Everybody's at those shows because, that's just how it is. Where in the U.S., it's all pretty much salespeople and they're just trying to sell the products. And sometimes engineers go, but it's very rare you're going to get a grower that has an argument with a
engineer in the U.S. But you're right, it has up files.
And the owner as well. Just about every one of those companies, the owner will be there, and that is nice because you can really catch just about anyone that you want to speak with, whether he's a salesman, engineer, the owner. You will find all those persons there to show, and you can engage in any type of discussion that you may need to engage at that point in time.
Yeah, it's a good lesson on Italy, and it's a good trading partner with the U.S. And I hope we can get these tariffs. We're recording this March 28th, so by the time this comes out, who knows what the tariff situation is going to look like, Alex? But we aren't going to figure it out. I know that. Talk a little bit of
bombarded with questions right now.
So that's all that I've been talking about, and it changes, so often, and yeah, I don't know. It's a tough hurdle to jump through now, but I think we're looking for some certainty and some stability in our market here, at least in the U.S., really throughout the world, and hopefully it'll come. Talk a little bit about SNA Manufacturing and what you guys do and what your role is there. You're a business development guy, so it's all about relationships and trying to carve basically similar position as the Trade Commission, right?
Very similar, very similar. I would say 80% of our customers are from the United States, and about close to 20% are in Canada. And then there's a sprinkle of them in Mexico and the islands. But really, Canada and the United States are the two major markets for our products. We bring in from Italy spray components, as well as foam markers. And we have added a couple other products like pruning tools, professional pruning tools. They're used not just in agriculture for, pruning orchards, but that can also be used in landscaping. We also serve the landscape industry and the turf industry. The turf industry, we're talking about, like, for example, equipment that is used to fertilize the golf courses. Tor is one of our customers, just to mention one of the companies. And we do bring also in some booms that are utilized on these sprayers for the turf industry, for example. It's used in ag as well, but really, for the most part, is used in the turf industry. And hopefully we can make some inroads and perhaps have it more adopted by the farm equipment industry as well.
Well, and let's talk about that. You and I met through Farm Equipment Manufacturers Association, FEMA. Maybe it was EMDA, one of the two, but definitely now through FEMA, we've kind of, how do you want to say it? We've solidified our friendship. Let's put it that way. You and I have served on the supplier board of governors now. I've been on that board for, it seems like since birth. One of these days I'll be coming off of it, but a long time. And you've been on it now for 5 years?
3rd year. This is my 3rd year.
Oh, this year.
Completing my 3rd year at this meeting coming up next in a week or so.
Yeah, we're having our spring conference in Fort Myers, Florida here in April. I don't know if this will come out before then, but we'll give an update after that. But yeah, tell everybody about your the importance of FEMA and organizations like FEMA and why you join and why it's so important for business development for you and your company that you're.
I think it's pivotal in any type of business strategy where a foreign company in particular, I think it's pivotal for local U.S. companies as well. But if you're a foreign company and you come to this market, you really need all the information you can gather about how to do business in the United States, how to connect with people, how to network with people. And if you are not joining one or more of these trade associations, you are really missing out on a wealth of information that you can gain from the members, from the association, through services that they offer. So I really think that it is a must to be a part of one or more association, depending what your company produces. For example, when I was with the Italian Trade Commission, I had joined AEM, AED, EMDA, FEMA, IDA. So, and that's just in the farm equipment, industry. Then we were members of other associations in other industries as well. But yeah, I think that it is not being part of an association is like trying to do business in a country blindly or blindfolded. You're really missing out on a huge opportunity to learn about the market and to meet people and to build relationships with these people.
That's a super intelligent comment, Alex. It's so true. It's like, why fly blind if you don't have to? And you've definitely figured that out. Just from, I've always said this too. Like the U.S. market, the U.S. ag market, you can't dabble in it. You have to kind of go all in and show your presence. You've done that. There's also other members with inside of FEMA. You mentioned Bondioli and Benzi's another one. Those companies show up and are there, and it just builds rapport, builds partnerships, collaborations, and before you know it, you're steady and you're doing business here pretty solidly.
Absolutely. And we exchange a lot of information. A lot of times we may not have the same kind of customers, but there are so many aspects of our business that crosses over. That you can share information with other people and then see, for example, in logistics. I mean, everybody's been facing some kind of constraint with logistics now since the COVID times. And then there was, the war in Ukraine and the conflict between the Palestinians and Israel that obviously created some issues with the Suez Canal and the Red Sea, that ships had to go around Africa, which adds another 2 weeks to the delivery of goods. Droughts where barges could not deliver, and then so on. Strikes. So I mean, there are so many constraints that come about that being able to speak with people, sometimes you can find solutions that you hadn't considered.
Yeah, this business is doing XYZ, this one's doing ABC, and it's like, oh, great. That's sort of the meeting of the minds of FEMA. Everybody can come together, and I don't know, for that 1 week, it does feel like we're all on the same team, even though a lot of us might be in competing businesses, but we're all on the same team trying to better the entire industry. And I think that rings true for sure with somebody like you. You talked about all those challenges. Now we got a big one in tariffs. What does that do? What does the future of global trade look like to you? It's so important and we don't want to lose it, but it's so challenging right now.
It really is. And global trade has changed and shifted so much just in the years that I have been with the Italian Trade Commission and now with SNA Manufacturing. I mean, when I first started work, the telex machine was a must to do business internationally. What's that? Was replaced by the fax machine.
Okay.
And now it's all by email. It's rare to find someone that will send your fax. I mean, I don't even know if we receive any faxes at all anymore. To be honest, we have a fax machine, but I don't think we receive any faxes through it. But international trade has changed the face of the world. I mean, if you think about it, and you look at different industries, as the world has gotten richer, we have really moved away from manufacturing into services quite a bit. And that's in most advanced and wealthy societies. In the United States nowadays, manufacturing only accounts for perhaps only 8% of the employment that is non-farm type of employment. Probably 80-90% of it is in services. And you see something similar in Europe as well. Manufacturing industries that were great and historical here in the United States. If you think about the textile industries, you go back to the 1800s, that industry has practically disappeared. And, it was thriving very well because, there was an abundant labor, a big market, the cotton was here, so the prime resources was here. But as time went by, those type of production shifted to countries that had a lower cost of labor. And whatever went to China, you see from China going to India or to Vietnam. So it's a constant change. And our industries are constantly changing as well. I see that strong what I would call clusters of industries. Like, let's say, for example, the Italian industry, where you have a strong cluster of uh, crop producers, food processors, equipment manufacturers, and then related to equipment and components and systems. When you have all these industries working together, they feed off of each other. And you have this symbiotic relationship where you create more innovation and you become more efficient in what you do. In the process of that, you see the number of people in those industries shrinking. It becomes more and more automated. Fewer and fewer people operating in the industry. And we see it here in the United States. Look how the number of dealers has shrunk since you and I have been in the industry alone. You've really seen a drastic, decline in the number of dealers. You don't need as many dealers anymore.
Yeah, and the ones that are out there, are getting bigger. I think that might be a feature, not a bug. I think that's the intent behind specifically, like, say, a John Deere. I know it's been an intent for years and years, and they're trying to consolidate those more. But talk about your opinion. I don't want to get too deep into like the politics of things, but
Sure.
These tariffs and how it's going to affect international trade. Is it going to bring manufacturing back to the U.S.? I mean, that's a great thing to say. I love saying it, but it's not like you can just snap your fingers and be like, okay, we're making, this again that we didn't make. The last time we made something was in 1845. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I love manufacturing, as you can imagine.
Me too.
And I think every country has a right to have certain industries somewhat protected that they consider strategic. I understand that people, need to have an agricultural industry because you have to worry about feeding your own people. You have to have steel. You have to have different industries that serve those basic needs, and that's important. I don't think that it's very easy, though, to protect manufacturing jobs or jobs in general and be successful at it. Why do I say that? I'm thinking, for example, of Germany and Japan primarily, very culturally strong on manufacturing, very much did everything they could to protect their manufacturing jobs. And yet you have seen their manufacturing industries shrink. They have not, they have not been able to keep the employment or the number of manufacturing companies at the same level as they were 10 or 20 years ago. So, and unfortunately, as time goes on, we are going to see fewer people in manufacture. We're going to be more efficient. We'll probably produce in terms of numbers just as much as before, but we'll need fewer companies and fewer people producing the same amount of goods. And some goods, for example, like I mentioned earlier, textiles or even shoes, the footwear industries, you will see those industries go to other places where they can do something similar, maybe not as good, but something similar at a better cost of production. And we'll have the market in here where people can perhaps be paid much more handsomely for their effort, but the actual production may not be in the United States anymore. So although I love manufacturing, I don't think that we can easily bring it back. I mean, wholeheartedly, I hope that we can grow manufacturing more in the United States, but it would take years. I don't see the efforts right now being able to bring in manufacturing very quickly. Like, let's look at the auto industry, for example, that has been in the news so much. It'll take 3 years to build a new plant. So it's not that you can snap your fingers and say, okay, this that we made in Canada, let's say, or Mexico, we're going to make it in the United States. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to take time. And we saw with the semiconductors as well. I mean, with the CHIPS Act, it takes many years to build one of these sophisticated plants and start manufacturing again. So yes, some can be done, but it's going to take time. It won't happen overnight.
Yeah, and I think taking baby steps, if, for instance, me in my business right now, I'm all about building momentum, and that could be one little baby step at a time. So I think any step that we're taking might help in the right direction because, yeah, there's certain things that we want to keep manufacturing here, but also we want to make it's such a global world now, and that's changed in my 20-year career. It was challenging to do international business back in the early 2000s, and it's a heck of a lot easier now. I mean, we're a global world. We know how to ship. We know how to, communicate. We know how to we know each other's cultures. So that's what I'd like to see is a bunch of international and global and kind of fair trade just flying throughout the world, and hopefully smarter minds than me is definitely working on that. I know that.
Well, if we go back to Adam Smith, for example, the theory that certain countries have certain abilities and certain, would you say, blessed with certain commodities that they are better suited than others. For Ukraine grows a lot of wheat. Why try to replicate that in Italy? Yeah, we can grow a lot of wheat in Italy, but we can grow other things that perhaps are more value added than growing wheat. So, I mean, different countries are suited to do things that are more advantageous. And then it's better that they concentrate on what they're really good at as opposed to try to do everything for everybody.
I got you, man. Well, super insightful stuff, Alex. I appreciate you, man. I feel like we could talk for hours on this stuff. This is I like it. But yeah, I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate you doing this. So thank you very much. Tell everybody how to get in touch with you, how to get in touch with SNA Manufacturing before we check off here.
Well, it's very easy to get in touch with us. We're based in Acworth, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. You can find us online at www.snamfg.com, or you can definitely reach out to me by email at alex@snamfg.com or by phone. So I can be easily found. Please look us up, and we'll be delighted to try to serve your needs as best as we can.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alex Mussa. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you inviting me on your show.
Of course. See you later.
Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.
Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.